Grâce à une carte prépayée, cet usager de la route nationale numéro 4 axe Ouaga-Zorgo vient de payer son droit d'usage au nouveau poste de péage moderne de Boutenga.
Something strange is happening in Burkina Faso. A toll booth? Yes, but not the kind you're thinking of. No cash, no queues, no humans are waving cars through. Just sensors, scanners, and software, doing what officials couldn't for decades, collecting money honestly. How did a forgotten road in Burkina Faso become the stage for one of Africa's boldest infrastructure experiments? Let's begin there. It all started with a simple problem. Toll money kept disappearing. Year after year, the Ministry of Infrastructure reported figures that didn't add up. Drivers paid, but roads never improved. The state bled funds. There were whispers, of course, about toll collectors taking their cut, about forged receipts, about lost records. But whispers don't build highways. They bury them. So the government changed its approach. It didn't just replace people with machines, it redesigned the entire system from the ground up. The result? A chain of ultra-modern toll stations powered by a network of sensors, RFID gates, automatic barriers, and surveillance systems, all communicating in real time with a central database. The stations didn't just record traffic, they understood it. They didn't just collect money, they logged it, tracked it, and sent digital alerts when anything looked suspicious. This wasn't a hardware upgrade. It was a transformation of the state's nervous system through steel, code, and cameras. But the rollout was careful. The government chose 3 test sites, Butena, Tintilu, and Kotadougou, not just because of traffic volume, but also because they were pressure points in the road network. Butena connects rural trade corridors to the capital. Tintilu is a key crossing for regional transporters. Kotadougou sits near a border zone known for smuggling and cash leakage. If the system could hold in these 3 hotspots, it could hold anywhere. And it did. Within days, the impact was visible. Drivers no longer had to argue over change or wait for a sleepy attendant. Receipts were instant, delays disappeared, and most importantly, the numbers finally made sense. Revenue collection doubled, without raising toll prices. That told officials everything they needed to know. But what made the system truly radical wasn't just the numbers. It was the fact that it was built entirely with Burkina Faso's own money. The project was spearheaded by the Faso Roadways and Services Bureau (FSRB), a domestic agency that bypassed foreign contractors, rejected IMF road loans, and opted to build capacity at home. Engineers were trained in-country. Sensors were sourced from regional partners. The software was custom-built to reflect Burkinabe realities, not imported templates from European cities. That independence gave the project a clarity of purpose that no consultant could ever offer. The stations don't carry the names of Western donors. They don't bear the logos of multilateral banks. They're not pilot projects or technical trials. They're operational, they work, and they're being scaled. That alone is a political message. It says, we no longer need a permission slip to modernize. Still, it's early. The new stations haven't faced every possible test, including technical sabotage, hacking attempts, and system overloads. But so far, they've held firm. And what's more, public confidence is slowly returning. For the first time in years, drivers feel like they're paying into something that exists. They can see the light above the gate opening on cue, and the receipt in their pocket. That feeling of a system that finally behaves may be the most revolutionary upgrade of all. Now that the system is alive, one question remains. What's happening behind the gates? Let's pause for a second to say, big thank you to the Black Culture Diary community, where Black voices, stories, and legacies are preserved and amplified. By becoming a member, you're not just supporting the channel, you're becoming part of a powerful cultural movement. Let's continue. The moment a vehicle approaches one of Burkina Faso's new toll stations, a silent sequence begins. There's no human wave, no shouted fare, no reach for loose coins. Instead, an invisible system, hidden beneath asphalt and embedded in overhead beams, springs to life. Sensors activate. Data pulses. The vehicle is scanned, logged, and processed before the driver even realizes they've entered the zone. This is not just a gate. It's a conversation between machine and machine. At the core of the operation is RFID, radio frequency identification, a technology typically reserved for airport luggage systems or military logistics. In Burkina Faso, it has found a new purpose, making road payments seamless and incorruptible. Every registered vehicle is assigned a digital ID chip, embedded into a tag or windshield sticker. As the car nears the toll station, this chip is read by a gate-mounted scanner, which verifies the identity of the vehicle, the toll class, the account balance, and the exemption status if applicable, all within milliseconds. If the data checks out, the gate opens automatically. If it doesn't, the system redirects the vehicle to a secondary lane for review, still handled digitally, without dispute. But RFID is only the first layer. Each toll station functions like a miniature control center, packed with surveillance gear, thermal imaging sensors, weight detection platforms, and high-resolution license plate recognition cameras. These cameras don't just record images. They read, analyze, and categorize traffic. They know whether a truck is overloaded, whether a car has passed through too quickly, or whether a motorcycle is trying to sneak by in a blind spot. That data is compiled and sent in real time to the FSRB's Central Operations Center in Ouagadougou, where engineers sit in front of massive dashboards filled with charts, flags, and blinking alerts. Unlike the old system, where toll revenue disappeared into untraceable hands, this one leaves fingerprints everywhere. Each transaction generates a unique digital receipt tied to a GPS timestamp, license plate image, and payment record. The system also self-audits. Every toll station's daily report is automatically compared against its expected traffic volume, based on vehicle counts, historical data, and route schedules. If there's even a 5% deviation, an alert is generated. No excuses, no forgotten paperwork, just numbers. Power outages, the stations run on solar backup arrays. Network interruptions, each gate has a localized memory cache that stores data until it reconnects. Tampering, the machines are tamper-locked with encrypted firmware. Any attempt to override the software is immediately flagged. And perhaps most crucially, no individual operator can override the system. The design is intentional, to place trust not in individuals, but in process. What makes all this even more impressive is its scalability. The system isn't a one-size-fits-all Western import. It was designed with Burkina Faso's unique road realities in mind. Rural routes have simplified versions with offline capability and mobile network syncing. High-volume routes like the Butena corridor run advanced models with real-time satellite uplinks. In each case, the system adapts, not the users. This digitized network doesn't just change how tolls are paid. It changes how the government understands its roads. Traffic patterns, peak hours, trade flows, smuggling anomalies, every kilometer becomes a data point. Policy decisions that once relied on estimates and anecdotes can now be backed by live information. If a northern corridor sees a drop in transport traffic, it may signal a security concern. If border routes show a surge in cargo trucks, trade policies can be adjusted. This is no longer infrastructure, it's intelligence. But even with all this power, there's a deeper question that now arises. Who does this system serve, and is it being used to benefit every citizen, or just the state? Here's a reminder to please like and share the video, and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black culture, history, civilization, and identity. Let's continue now. A machine can collect tolls. A machine can even detect fraud. But a machine alone cannot determine whether a system is just. That question of fairness falls squarely on the shoulders of the people who designed the machine. In Burkina Faso's case, the designers didn't just think about wires and algorithms. They asked something most engineers forget to ask: who might be left behind? It would have been easy for the government to roll out a shiny high-tech system and declare victory, one that worked perfectly for the middle class, for cargo trucks, and for the formal economy, while quietly squeezing out rural transporters, low-income commuters, and humanitarian convoys. But they didn't. Instead, Burkina Faso made the rare decision to bake social equity directly into the architecture of its toll network. This was not an afterthought or a public relations campaign. It was structural. Take motorcycles, for instance. In Burkina Faso, motorcycles are more than just cheap vehicles. They are economic lifelines. From farm workers to students to roadside vendors, two-wheelers represent the daily commute, the market run, the emergency trip to the clinic. Charging tolls on motorcycles would have been an easy revenue generator, but it would also have punished the country's most vulnerable, so they were exempted completely. The system automatically recognizes a motorcycle and lifts the barrier without triggering a payment. No application needed, no negotiation, just a recognition of reality. The same principle applies to certain categories of vehicles serving humanitarian, agricultural, and medical purposes. These vehicles are registered under specific tags in the FSRB database, allowing them to bypass toll charges or pay reduced fees. Unlike the old system, where these exemptions were often based on verbal agreements or easily forged paper slips, the new setup handles it digitally, with zero room for manipulation. A vehicle is either in the system or it isn't. The machine doesn't take bribes, it just checks the list. What's even more progressive is the way the system handles low-income private vehicles, especially those owned by drivers operating informal transport routes between rural villages and urban markets. Recognizing that these vehicles form a backbone of internal trade and food distribution, the government introduced a program called Mobility Access Tiering. Registered drivers in this category receive partial toll waivers, credited monthly through mobile money accounts. This isn't charity, it's infrastructure logic. If you keep the economy moving, the system works with you, not against you. These design choices matter because they address the core contradiction of many development projects: systems that are efficient but unfair. Burkina Faso is trying something harder, building a system that is both efficient and inclusive. It's not perfect, and there are edge cases still being reviewed, but the framework is there. To collect without punishing, to monitor without excluding. And inclusion isn't limited to road users. Behind the cameras and sensors is a workforce of Burkinabe technicians, coders, and system analysts. This isn't a project imported from abroad. It's being run from inside the country, by people who understand the terrain, the people, and the stakes. The engineers managing the RFID database aren't foreigners flown in for launch week. They are young professionals trained locally through new government-backed certification programs. In a country where the youth unemployment rate has long been a ticking time bomb, the toll system has created a rare thing: technical jobs tied to public infrastructure, not extractive industries or aid projects. So who owns this system? Not just the government, not just the drivers, but the public. The ones riding bikes, driving old pickup trucks, and manning the code. It's a system that doesn't just move vehicles, it redistributes access. But the road to equity is never without friction. And with all this new control comes an old question: can this level of centralized power be trusted? Or will the data, the gates, and the algorithms eventually be used for something more than tolls? Every time a car passes through one of Burkina Faso's new toll stations, a quiet transaction occurs, not just of money, but of information. A plate is scanned, a timestamp is logged, a location is pinned. All this happens in a fraction of a second, unnoticed by the driver. But on a server miles away, the state knows that a vehicle moved from Butena to Tintilu at 9:43 a.m., stayed on the highway for 47 minutes, and paid its toll through a linked mobile account. What began as a system to fix infrastructure inefficiencies has now, in practice, created something far more powerful: a national surveillance grid built into the very arteries of the country. And it raises a new question, one that rarely gets asked when we talk about progress. Who controls the controller? The toll stations do not merely function as payment points. They have become data collection hubs. They gather volumes of information far beyond the financial: traffic flows, regional density spikes, behavioral trends, cross-border movements. This data, when aggregated over time, tells a deeper story. It maps migration. It highlights smuggling routes. It detects economic shifts before they hit official records. For a government, this is gold. But for a democracy, or any society hoping to remain free, it's also a loaded weapon. Today, that data is used to reduce revenue leakage and improve service delivery. But tomorrow? It could be used to track political dissidents, monitor protest movements, or restrict mobility in ways that violate human rights. The line between logistics and surveillance is thin and often invisible. In a region where past regimes have used checkpoints and roadblocks as tools of repression, the idea of an automated gate recognizing your vehicle isn't just impressive, it's deeply political. What makes this development both exciting and dangerous is how silent it is. No soldiers are standing at these toll stations. No barked orders. No interrogations. And yet, the system now knows more about national movement than any security agency could dream of just a decade ago. Its politeness is part of its power. By solving one problem, financial corruption, it may have quietly created another, an infrastructure of total visibility. To be clear, there's no evidence that the current government is abusing this system. The transparency measures are some of the most progressive on the continent. But that's precisely why this moment is so critical. The stronger and more efficient the system becomes, the more attractive it becomes as a tool of political control, especially if power ever shifts into less responsible hands. Today's tool for public service could easily become tomorrow's instrument of coercion. And there's another layer: data ownership. All of this information, terabytes of it, is housed and processed within the country's public infrastructure system. But the software development, the server architecture, and the ongoing system maintenance involve a growing number of third-party contractors. Most are local, but some operate through regional digital platforms. If security protocols aren't airtight, the potential for data leaks or unauthorized access remains real. In a digital ecosystem, vulnerabilities don't just come from within. They arrive through forgotten code, unpatched systems, and compromised supply chains. The toll system has given Burkina Faso extraordinary new powers: to observe, to regulate, to react. That's not inherently bad. It may be necessary in a country rebuilding its institutions. But power without accountability has a short half-life. Already, civil society groups are beginning to raise quiet concerns, not about the system's purpose, but about its permanence. They are asking, where is the oversight? Who audits the data logs? What happens when a mistake is made? Is there an appeals process? And what protections exist for ordinary citizens if the system one day begins to see them as threats rather than users? These questions may seem premature, but history suggests otherwise. Across the world, the same tools that promise security and convenience often end up tracking people for reasons far removed from infrastructure. And yet, despite the risks, the transformation is undeniable. Something big is unfolding on Burkina Faso's roads, a quiet revolution of visibility and control. The question is whether that revolution will end in empowerment or surveillance. In the final analysis, it's not just about the toll system, it's about where this road leads. And the next turn brings us to the big picture. What does this tell us about the future of Burkina Faso and the future of Africa itself? What began as an answer to toll fraud and broken infrastructure has quietly evolved into something much larger, a state-crafted digital ecosystem that could redefine what African development looks like in the 21st century. These aren't just gates collecting money. They are symbols of national direction, expressions of a government reshaping how it sees itself and how it is seen. And that symbolism matters. Because in a region long defined by aid dependency, externally imposed reforms, and chronic underinvestment, Burkina Faso's decision to self-fund, self-build, and self-operate its advanced tolling system is frankly revolutionary. It's not just about revenue collection, it's about narrative control. For once, the story isn't that Africa is being helped, it's that Africa is helping itself, with code, with steel, and with sovereignty. This kind of self-determined transformation creates ripple effects. By the way, we have launched a merch that honors the African leaders who are taking a stand for Africa. Check them out, to show you also stand with loyal sons of Africa no matter where you are. Already, transport officials and digital infrastructure planners from neighboring countries like Niger, Togo, Benin, and even parts of Ghana have reportedly sent teams to observe the stations in Butena and Kotadougou, not because they're curious about traffic volumes, but because they see the underlying philosophy, a state regaining grip over its territory through intelligence, not intimidation. It's becoming clear that Burkina Faso has inadvertently created a blueprint, a model of what localized, tech-driven infrastructure development can look like without the burden of external debt or external design. But the larger significance lies in what this model could mean for African regional integration. Imagine a future where every member of the West African Economic and Monetary Union, UIMU, deploys similar interoperable toll systems that don't just collect tolls, but share traffic data, reduce smuggling, streamline trade, and enhance cross-border transparency. A truck carrying tomatoes from Bobo-Dioulasso to Lomé wouldn't need to stop at outdated checkpoints or renegotiate fees at every national border. Instead, with integrated RFID protocols and real-time digital clearance, the trip becomes faster, cleaner, and safer. That's not just good for roads, it's transformative for intra-African commerce, especially under the African Continental Free Trade Area, AfCFTA framework. And the benefits go beyond economics. There's a psychological shift underway too. Citizens, long conditioned to expect dysfunction from government systems, are now encountering toll gates that don't demand bribes, don't delay them, and don't lie. That reliability, machine-based as it may be, begins to restore something immeasurable. Trust. Trust in public service. Trust in national leadership. Trust in the possibility of state efficiency. That trust, if nurtured carefully, can snowball into something bigger. With trust comes compliance. With compliance comes revenue. With revenue comes autonomy. And with autonomy comes political dignity, the kind that lets a nation say no to exploitative contracts, no to overreaching aid agencies, and yes to domestic priorities. But none of this is automatic. The toll stations may be automated, but the future they unlock is not. Maintenance will be needed. Expansion must be strategic. Privacy concerns must be addressed head-on. And above all, the leadership must continue to resist the temptation to weaponize the system for political ends. Because while technology can enable freedom, it can just as easily enforce control. Still, for now, the direction is clear. Burkina Faso is not waiting to be rescued. It is engineering its path, one RFID scan at a time. And if the rest of Africa is watching closely, they should understand what's really at stake here. This isn't just about tolls. It's about rewriting the rules of engagement between a state and its people. It's about proving that the digital age doesn't have to be imported. It can be African by design. And it's about making sure that when the gates open, they don't just let vehicles through. They let the future in. Would you trust a machine more than a human to run your country's roads? Let us know in the comments section. Is Burkina Faso building a future or quietly building a digital state of control? Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If so, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: the Black culture, civilization, history, and evidence about how glorious Blacks have been. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.